kids of back in my day parents. What's the most annoying thing they ranted about? It always drove me nuts when my parents would complain about how we never spent any time outdoors because back in their day they'd be tramping through the woods at all hours of the night. I wanted to do that, but I wasn't allowed outside. You can't climb trees, sports are too dangerous. Don't look for bugs, they're gross. Put that stick down, war is not a game. I don't want you playing with that kid, he's weird. It's getting dark, time to come in. No, you can't play with the big kids, play with the little ones. Translation: you're now my babysitter, I'm not buying you toys, use your imagination. Don't play there, you'll get dirty. Hey, why don't you ever go out and play? All through my teenage years my mom would get mad that I didn't know how to cook, or clean something good enough, or use something correctly, usually gardening tools, etc. When I was your age I could run my family's B&B single-handed. Then when she was done telling me how stupid I was for not knowing, she'd take over and tell me to go away. Thanks for teaching me how to do it right. That's how my dad taught me car maintenance. Okay, so just unscrew the plug. Which one's the plug? Here, move, let me do it. Several minutes later, ick, now you should really be the one doing this. Thanks, Dad. My dad used to tell us about how he and his sisters had to walk 6 km to school each way in blinding blizzards, in 8 feet of snow, with only plastic bags, to keep their feet warm, while somebody slapped them on the back of the head with a cold fish. And of course we believed him. Then one day at the farm, in the woods by the back 40, we found this old carriage on sled runners with a wood burning stove. We asked Grandpa what it was. I used to drive your dad and your aunts to school in that in the winter. The old horses would pull it. We never believed another story about my dad's hardscrabble upbringing ever again. My dad and uncle/aunt like to rant about how young people don't have any honesty or work ethic. My oldest and youngest uncle made moonshine. My middle uncle stole cars. My dad built moonshine running cars out of the parts, and my aunt ran off with a 50-year-old sugar daddy at 15. It took the car stealing uncle going to jail to straighten them out. My landlord summed it up nicely: you kids would have gotten shot for pulling half the stuff I did at your age. You kids get a trophy for everything now. You never learn how to try hard. Yes, when I was a child I got participation trophies, and they felt very patronizing. Also, I was 7. I didn't ask for the damn trophies. It was your generation who was giving them to me. That their parents were way stricter and more overbearing, so we had no room to complain. My dad always did this. Denied any criticism of his parenting because his dad was stricter on him than he is with me, and yet he'd also constantly brag about shenanigans he did as a teenager, like stealing his dad's car, stealing his dad's beer and cigarettes, disappearing for a few days with friends, partying every weekend, drinking and doing drugs at 16, getting into drunken fights, etc. Meanwhile I never went out, never spoke to friends outside of school, never touched alcohol, heck I didn't even know what weed smelled like until I was 20. But apparently I'm the brat who doesn't respect his father. When they get nostalgic over things like encyclopedias and catalogs, don't play. You hated searching and waiting as much as we do. You love Amazon and Wikipedia too. Dial phones. They complained about how kids these days, specifically my brother and I, don't know how to use them, after forgetting we had one in the house until I was 7, and I know full well how to use one. And yet none of them can operate a telegraph using Morse code. Got yelled at when I quit a job in college that paid $8/HR. I made $3 an hour. When I was your age, I would have killed to make that. Something inflation. Quit after I realized the money I made in a month would barely pay for one of my textbooks, and I was taking 18 credits and didn't have enough time to actually read them. When I was 11, I was hit by a car crossing the road, and it messed up the muscles in one of my legs, but I didn't officially find out about it until a couple years ago. I'm 23. So in high school I'd walk to school every day, and every day my calf muscle would feel like it was about to snap. I would tell my parents all the time, and always got the in our day. We walked to school every day, and it was way further blah blah blah. They thought I was trying to get rides to and from school and be lazy, lying about being in pain, or saying it was just growing pain. and that it was normal. Sucks. My parents made me eat seafood for 8 years before they realized that I wasn't just complaining because I didn't like the taste. My throat would actually swell up, but they never did anything. Quit pretending. Zx Mega Faggot 42069XX. We know you just have impressive control of your throat muscles. Now look, you're on the floor pretending to seize, causing a scene. Typical. I was an honor roll student. It isn't that hard. My mother, who took arts in high school, never went to college, and arguing with me about how it's not difficult to keep grades up. I'm a physics major. Mom, you don't know anything about what I'm doing. That's when you start explaining things like how acceleration is the derivative of velocity, which is the derivative of position, or something even more complicated. Pretty much what I did. I started explaining time dilation to her really quickly and asked her to repeat it back to me word for word. Needless to say, she didn't talk to me because I was arrogant and cocky, because I was good at science and she wasn't. There is no end to this. I stopped talking to her about how school is going, since every time I bring up how hard it is, she compares it to her time in school. My mom was from Cambodia during the time when they were communist. Every time I ask for anything, it's back in my day. This is how most conversations go in my house. Cookie dough is just an example. Me, mom, can I get some cookie dough for later? Mom, back in my day we ate bugs and we starved for days fleeing from the communist, dodging bullets, running around dead bodies, and you're asking me for cookie dough? You're so unappreciative and spoiled. Me, I know world worked. Back in my day kids didn't talk back to their parents or give them attitude. If they did, they got a good beating. First of all, what you and your parents consider back quote talking back is actually called having any sort of opinion different from yours. And yeah, maybe I do have an attitude. It should be expected. I'm young and stupid, but not so stupid that I can't have a thought of my own. And any attitude I do give you is mostly because my opinions aren't taken seriously and you don't listen to me. My grandparents. You can't trust anybody in this world anymore. Back in my day there were no rapes or murders. Everyone was nice and cared for each other. No one hurt each other. First of all, that's a fucking lie. There were rapes and murders and horrible people back in your day. You just never heard of them because A, they went unreported to the police, B, you didn't have TV and shit to report on them, C, you just never paid attention and pretended it didn't exist. My grandma also tries saying stuff like, oh, such and such city is dangerous. You can't ever go there. Any place can be dangerous. There have been murders and huge heroin problems just miles from my house. But the news only likes to report on the exciting problems in exciting areas. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen everywhere. The most annoying thing they rant about is us not providing our kids the same life they had. My great-grandparents owned several thousand acres at the turn of the century. They passed down land, heirloom furniture, or thriving farm, etc. The next generation split that all up. Sold a lot of it to start their own business. The next generation the same. The last little plot of that is my mom's acre. Each generation inherited less and less. I will inherit nothing. I got no land to start my family with, unlike them. No heirloom furniture, no money, nothing. My family looks down on me and my cousins for struggling, pretending they worked harder than we do, but they'll never know how hard our generation works for our kids. There's a saying that goes something like this: the first generation works, the second generation maintains, the third generation blows it all away, and the fourth generation works to get it back. And then the cycle repeats with the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and so on generations until there is pretty much nothing left from the first generation. My parents grew up very poor, which has made them very frugal. Growing up I learned a lot about saving money, but there's a difference between being frugal and just being cheap. My parents would use things until they are completely dead. They still had a court TV in their living room up until 2013. Growing up it was so hard to try and get my parents to get me new things was so hard, like I couldn't get new shoes until mine were literally falling apart, and even then we would get the cheapest shoes at Kmart or something. They would always buy the cheapest things possible, then complain when they would break or fall apart quickly. Even to this day they are still very cheap. My mom's phone is 4 or 5 years old and can't hold a charge, but she refuses to buy a new one. My dad travels for work a lot but still uses a pair of $25 Skullcandy headphones he got years ago on his flights. Their laptops are from 2012 and they complain about them being slow and crashing, but refuse to buy new ones. My dad said his laptop crashed last week and he had to completely reinstall Windows and ended up losing an entire day of work. I honestly don't understand it anymore. I live 1,000 miles away from them, so it's hard to keep track of the dumb stuff they do anymore. I should also point out that they make $100k/year each.